if these walls could talk. I am your host, Wendy Stuart, and I am without my other host today, Tim Moss. So I have a representative pillow next to me because when I don't have Tim, I just squeeze this and pretend like he's here. I hope you all had a really great week this week. My God, this week, I was thinking my world was so important. I just was one of the people that performed in an incredible show, Christmas in July, for the Imperial Court at Industry Bar. We raised money, of course, for Bailey House, but bigger fish to fry, it seems. We went into space this week, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Jeff Bezos, I hope I said it right, Jeff Bezos and 3 other people went into space in a very efficient way. That's what they tell me. You know, not a rocket that'll just dismember itself. This one just completely disintegrates when you're all done using it. And it's supposed to make travel into space a lot more affordable for all of us. So what do you think of that? That sounds pretty good. Should I be planning to go to space anytime soon? Well, I'm not really sure if I should. And the truth in the matter is, I don't know what to pack. Like, you know, when I'm going to the Hamptons or someplace like that, I know to pack, you know, all like cute little dresses and earrings and things like that. What do you wear in space? What do you wear in space? So if you're listening here today and you're on our chat, please, maybe you can answer that question. Some suggestions from moi, what I can wear in space. So today, as every Wednesday at 2:00, we are broadcasting from the infamous PANGEA on the Lower East Side. Not only a fabulous restaurant, but supporter of the artists. And we have cabaret here that is now on a jam-packed schedule, as well as the front of the restaurant with beautiful musical accompaniment. And again, PANGEA supports the arts. We support them. Please come on down, have a listen, have a delicious meal, bring your friends. I have a great time here, and they have a really, really great bar as well. So I'm sure you're all wondering who the guest is today. Well, I am so happy to see this guy in person because I've only ever heard him. That's right. And so have you, because he is a composer. He's a producer. He's a musician. Chances are, if you have heard a musical score in a well-known feature film or television, or at a sporting event, it was done by the one and the only Randy Edelman.
Hey. Hi, Wendy.
How are you?
Good.
Thank you for being with us today.
I'm happy to be there.
This is really exciting. Now, when we were talking earlier, you asked me where I was. I'm in New York. I'm just going to assume, are you in California?
I am in the heart of Beverly Hills, California, my studio. Yeah.
And that's, of course, where your studio is. So I'm just going to ask you a question that's got nothing to do with this, because that's the kind of girl I am. I get on tangents. What is the sky looking like there? Because, you know, we're getting some of your fires over here.
The sky. You want me to look out there? It's beautiful.
Please, Rick. Do that for me. You have.
Yeah. You know, Beverly Hills doesn't get any of that stuff.
Of course.
It stops at Portland. No,
right.
It's 90210. No, right now it's beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, good to know. So maybe all of this will be dissipating. I don't know if you heard my beginning, but you know, I was talking about going into space. And
well, that's very interesting because I just finished my piece, Launch of a Lifetime, for NBC for their Olympic broadcast.
How fantastic.
Isn't that funny? It's called Launch of a Lifetime, and I just sent it out there for the start of the game. I'll just mention that. We didn't talk about it, but it's kind of funny. You know, should you have some time later, I'll give it to you. You do what you want with it. But it's just funny that you said that. It wasn't, by the way, called that because it's recently, the last couple of weeks, that I did it and wrote it. But, you know, it's just interesting that that's the name of it.
Well, yeah, no, but I love coincidence, Randy. Do we think that's what we're talking about here? The fact that you did that?
Yeah. Yeah. And hopefully NBC thinks it is too, because they always use lots of my stuff on their broadcasts. But.
Now, with something like that, you know, with the Olympics, what's the process that you go through? Do they come to you and tell you, or how does it work?
Sorry to cut you off. Okay, here's how that works. This is different what I just told you about. They started years ago
Yes.
They hooked up. They got into the sound of my scores. We're talking about Gettysburg, Dragonheart, Last of the Mohegans. Kind of drag in the Bruce Lee story. Big kind of triumphant things that sometimes I do. Sometimes I do little nerdy comedies, and they started using it. So basically, it was great because I did nothing. They would just get the CD and my soundtrack, which I always do after I do a film score, and they just put it with certain things, usually at the last minute, because if they run a race and somebody unfortunately falls down, and then they got to do a story about that, I'm not talking about these pieces in that instance. So they generally do it probably right from New York, no matter where the Olympics are, in the editing room there, and
They
then
put it together
5 seconds later all over the world. So that's how that works. In this case, once in a while, I've written specific things for them. Normally, it's just they take my music and do whatever they want, which is fun.
So for the Olympics, it's got to be, we all watch the Olympics, right? It's got to be thrilling because for me, right, those opening ceremonies, Randy, those are, you can actually feel your heart palpitating when that happens.
Yeah,
so is it because in certain cases, your style of music is thrilling?
Hopefully certain ways it is. And this thing, if you heard it, and even in the end, I'll try to get this to you. You'll hear it, and in 1 second you'll go, "Yeah, that's in this case." But that's another story. I just wanted to throw that in because it's coincidence on the spur of the moment, and you talked about it. And
because that's the kind of girl I am. So let's talk about another coincidence. Okay. Didn't I read you've written things for NASA? They've used some of your stuff.
Well, again, same thing. NASA called me a couple of years ago, and they had done a documentary.
Love it.
About this was after the shuttle launch thing, and in that case they had used the main title of my score to Gettysburg, and they literally cut each cut. I mean, starting out when Kennedy said in 1962 we're going to the moon, and then they did like a historical thing. They literally cut their documentary, each cut to where my music changed.
Amazing.
And so again, they actually wanted me to do something, and then at the end I said, "Listen, why don't you just use that?" And of course, they did.
But that's so incredible that you almost have a bit of a prophecy in the kinds of things you score that after the fact they can be used for epic things. Going to the moon, the Olympics.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like I said, I mean, the Gettysburg was obviously a Civil War thing that I did with, the greatest Civil War, Ted Turner. I mean, Ted Turner made Gettysburg, and it's a long story. Why me going to meet him, and I didn't want to do it because it was a lot of work, and it was for a new entity he had called.
Wait, you didn't want to meet Ted Turner, or you didn't want to do this?
I wanted to meet him. I didn't want to do the score.
You didn't want to do the score
for many reasons, which we won't get into. He started after this guy lived on a cot for 20 years, trying to convince people that he was going to start a 24-hour news service, and nobody wanted it. Then they didn't. So after that was obviously successful, he started a station called TNT. Now this is. Course. It was like, what is that? It's like a cable thing. They're going to make original. This is before Sopranos and all that, or a little bit. So it's like, what? They're going to make movie studios have a difficult enough time making original material. Now this little cable companies can do something about the Civil War, blah, 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 blah. But eventually, just what you said, they called me and I said, okay. And it just happened, another Wendy coincidence, that he was in town with his wife at the time, Jane Fonda, out at the beach for the Oscars or something. Maybe she was giving an award. So I called and I said, oh, you know what? Because I was always interested in Ted Turner. He had an interesting history in
a really interesting guy.
America's Cup. So I zipped out there right from here, 15, 20 minutes. Boom, I was in the room with him. This guy was if I think I'm like energetic and neurotic and everything, he was jumping up and down with his enthusiasm for this big Civil War epic that he had bought the book called Killer Angels, and that became Gettysburg. And like, there's no way that I was going to leave this guy and say, I'm sorry, I can't do your 5-hour miniseries, which then we'll stop talking about this. Ted Turner, after he heard my score to Gettysburg, I went down to Atlanta. I sat with just the two of them in a room, and he turned to me and he said, Randy, this is not a miniseries. This music has made it. It's a feature film. Of course, it was about 4.5 hours long. If you put
epic, absolutely epic.
Went to Miramax, to Harvey Weinstein. I know we shouldn't, talk, and the Weinstein brothers, and wanted to buy Miramax to release Gettysburg. Well, they would have none of it. So we went to another smaller company at the time called New Line. And Ted Turner bought New Line. That's why he was in Warner's and all that stuff, to release Gettysburg as a feature film. That's the long and short of it. And if anybody would talk to him, he would tell you that that's what happened. He went out and he bought that company and released this 4.5 hour epic. Of course, it did go on his TNT eventually as a miniseries, but that's that story. But like I said,
Wendy, what you're talking about in this story is how influential your musical score was.
Well, that's, for somebody else to say, but that's how they.
Well, I'm saying it. I'm Wendy, and I can say it because you know what? Listen, we all watch the Academy Awards and we see the actors and actresses there. And then we see those awards for the music, right?
Yeah.
And you never quite know the story behind it or anything. They play a couple of little ditties for you. But what you're describing is so profound.
Yeah, they all listen, not only mine, everybody's, especially all the scores for films. And by the way, it doesn't matter if it's a period epic like that or a little kind of, I shouldn't say nerdy comedy, but some of my little comedies like My Cousin Vinny and The Man and, Billy Madison and Kindergarten Cop. It's like they all have stories. You see, they have years and years and years of whatever went into them. No matter, you may say, oh, that's a silly movie or that's a wonderful drama. It doesn't matter. They still have people and stories that go on 20, 25 years before, if they were fortunate, they got a green light by someone in this town to make it. So they all have stories. And of course, the composer makes a big contribution. But the composer is not part of that story because the composer is not part of the family who made that 20-year story. They come in last. And that's just the way it is. You come in when the film is basically done. And if you have a relationship with the director, of course, you may have known earlier. But the fact is, until it's done and put together and just about to come out, that's when the composer comes in. So it's always, it keeps you on your toes. And
I would say so, because you're basically being handed a map, a completed map. All right. And that's what they're giving you. And then you have to take the ball from there.
Well, yeah, you take the ball, except as we both know, this is a collaborative medium.
Yeah.
You've got a map. Okay. You got to go from here to there. How do you get there?
The
director wants to get there this way, and the composer may think it's a better idea, and the studio. So, therein lies the kind of difficulty and yet beauty and challenge of writing music, if you're fortunate enough to get into it and be ready and have the musical chops, because that's what it takes to do it. It's challenging, and it if you do it long enough, I mean, it's a fresh thing, because every movie is different, and the different, completely different animal than the guy who may have been walking in here 4 months ago.
Totally.
So that's how it is. So you got to stay kind of like open to stuff.
So how does a kid from Teaneck, New Jersey get into this crazy business?
Well, okay. I was always, since I was very young, I loved music and, gravitated toward maybe walking over to the piano in the living room and playing things I heard by ear before I started seriously taking lessons. And
You had to gift them for the
I
ear.
had,
Yeah.
yeah, I didn't come from a family or anything that it's like, if I was so great and living in Teaneck, why didn't they take me? And by the way, I have nothing. I'm not saying anything about my family. They were great. How come they didn't take me 10 minutes across the bridge to Juilliard? You know what I mean? To
Yeah,
study
you're right.
or someplace like that. That never happened. And I wanted to be like everybody else. And what was happening then? Sports. If you were a kid, you had to play sports.
Yep. We probably
Playing
came
the-
out at the same time.
didn't
It
make
wasn't
it
for artsy kids.
till later on when I figured out piano, attention, music, girls. That's the key. It's always about a girl, as you know.
Yeah.
And so anyway, all I can tell you is, so I gravitated toward that and did it very seriously, kind of quietly, because I kind of wanted to be like everybody else in Teaneck, New Jersey. And as far as film scoring, forget it. I mean, there was not any. The film scoring had a different sort of, let's say, cachet then, and there was very little attention. I mean, if you heard Henry Mancini
Yeah.
or for Breakfast at Tiffany's, and then somebody wrote a lyric and it became Moon River. Yeah, you heard about stuff like that, or Maurice Jarre writing the great score to like Dr. Zhivago, played by the blah, blah, blah. You every once in a while you heard something that was great. However, it's not something at all. I just listened to it like anybody else. I saw a film. If I liked it, I recognized the music. But as far as me doing it, no interest at all. Nor did I have any interest in, except liking pop music, writing songs or being an artist. And all these things happened very quickly after I went to a kind of.
Well, but this is very interesting to me, Randy. I've had a lot of musicians well known on this show, and most of them early on were either influenced by parents, right? Or they were writing when they were 12, 13, or got into a band or whatever. What is so interesting is you were Randy from Teaneck, and you were just like, working your way through high school and girls and piano. Now, for college, you went to a conservatory, though. Is that when the music thing started to come together?
No.
No.
Music together I was a serious musician when I was 8 years old. Serious. I wasn't just taking lessons. I was giving concerts, but classical music. See, and that's why my family.
Hold up there. Okay, that's what I'm going for here. So you were 8 years old and you were already, you were gifted, Randy. Let's say it. I can say it.
It's not like I was playing with symphony orchestras, but I
You
was.
were right.
I practiced my ass off every night, and along with the sports. And but you said something interesting, and that's why my family or my parents, towards the end of my high school time, music was, the Beatles happened and music was in and people had bands. I never, ever, ever thought I was ever in a band. I still have never been in a band. I was a guy behind a piano trying to figure out a way that I could beat the system and write music, original music, for the rest of my life and never have a job. Okay. That was a little thing in my head. I wouldn't have put it that way at the time. But in other words, it was like this thing. But I never played in a band and I still haven't. Now, have I worked with a million of the greatest musicians all the time? But I write the music and then I orchestrate it and conduct it and play it. And I do it with them. But as far as me doing the collaboration of arranging or writing or composing a song or music, even when I started writing songs, everybody had a lyricist. Elton John as a lyricist, and Burt Bacharach as a lyricist, and Lennon McCartney. But I never, even though I didn't have much interest in it right from the beginning, I never dealt with anybody. If I had a song, I wrote the lyrics. If I needed it sung, I sang it. And that's when I started doing my albums at a time when, if you could sort of carry a tune and write a melody.
Yeah, you started with a solo career, right?
Well, I started because I couldn't. First I started as a musician playing piano on Broadway after my conservatory stuff and my connection with James Brown in Cincinnati, Ohio. That's where everything kind of changed, because they saw this kid who wrote arrangements and bought kids from the school, i.e. girls, playing violins and stuff on these songs that he wrote for another girl in a rock and roll band.
It's about girls. You're talking about the girls again there, Randy.
No, because I'm trying to tell you, Wendy, I'm trying to be honest with you. So,
be honest, lay it all out here. That's why we call up these walls to talk.
Yeah. Okay. So there was nothing weird, by the way. I was just a fairly innocent young Jewish kid from New Jersey who ended up in Cincinnati because my parents wanted me in pre-med, but there was a music conservatory there that was like.
Because you were a Jewish kid, you had to be pre-med.
Of course, pre-med.
Of course, I get it.
I was in pre-med for a second, but I ended up in
happen.
which was a phenomenal town. But to me at the time, it was like going to the moon. Things were different, even though Cincinnati's not that far in terms of this country from New Jersey. But it was for me, different.
Believe me, it's very different. When Jerry Springer was located there, I was early on his show before it became trash.
It was a mayor.
I went to Cincinnati for the first time when he was mayor. It's different than New York.
Yeah.
It's different than LA.
Yeah. So anyway, I got involved in some interesting stuff there, including King Records. That was James Brown's label that had like a little recording studio and literally like a garbage dump there.
Wow.
Bring these kids to play on these Bobby Blue Bland and James tracks. And they loved it because they'd like give me $100. I'd give the kids like 50 and do an arrangement. And then they'd go out and sell like, It's a Man's World of 1 billion copies and had all these parts done. And then they'd call me. So it was great experience. Then when I went to New York, I had this stuff and I kind of schlepped around for a very short time. I think the draft was the end of the
Vietnam War or something.
Yeah, the war was, but there was that draft. And like an idiot, my father thought I was crazy. I threw my number into the lottery and he said, "You schmuck, what are you throwing? They're going to pick you," but they didn't. So I started doing lots of stuff. I was conducting for singers, playing on Broadway. And I'm talking about months and months and months. We're not talking years. And at that time, and that's how I'm going to get into the solo album thing, and then we'll get on everything else. What was happening, Wendy, is that was at the time when the music business had it came around to something different. Years ago, a music publisher took a song to a music record producer who had a job at a record label, who had different artists on the label assigned to him to produce. So the publisher took him the song. He liked the song. He took it to Frank Sinatra, whoever, to record. Well, we all know the music business changed, and the people spent 99% of the music. I don't care if it was Bob Dylan. I don't care if it was the Beatles or James Taylor or Carole King or Elton John or the Eagles. They wrote and produced their own stuff. Guess what? So when I came around there, when I started hearing this stuff that I liked, these albums that people were making, and especially listening to the arrangements. That's what when I was a kid, I always listened to not just the song, but like the strings or the background singers or the horns in the background. I came around. If you wrote songs, then the amount of people, the odds of you're getting your song recorded were like nothing, because you only had like 4 people. The rest of the people, the big guys, hip guys, they didn't want to hear from me or anybody else. So therefore, I went and signed like 100-page form record contract because I was so psyched up. I had written these songs, couldn't get anybody to sing them, and realized I wasn't. So I went in and recorded them myself, signed one of those form contracts, and in my head was, you know what? I'll go in and do it. No one's heard of this label, and no one's going to hear this album. And that'll be the end of it. But, of course, that happened. However, did the album happen? No, just like I thought. However, something else did.
Yes.
Which, and something else kept happening with those records. And it kept it going so that for years, I was able to get these record deals, even though my records as an artist on those albums didn't happen except for some reason in the UK, in London, big time. You know,
But it's interesting. You're really talking about coming in the back door. You came in the back door.
I came in the back door. Yeah, and so that's how that happened. And again, I wasn't anybody coming out of a band or wanting to be an artist. So I did all those years because, you know, you do, just like in your life and anybody's life, you do what's happening, what people are interested in you doing. So along with some other musical things that I had interest in, along with studying how to score movies, there wasn't the technology like there was a mathematical thing that you learned.
Okay, I'm just going to back up a little bit, though. You know, you went from the solo albums.
Because I don't know how much time you have.
I have all the time in the world for you, Randy. We're good. We're rocking it out here. Right. I want to hear, this is really interesting to me. I don't know anything about the world you come from other than I love music in movies and in TV. So you went from the solo career into scoring. How much of that scoring had to do with the fact that when you were younger, you would listen to music and you could pull out the different parts, you said it, of the violin and the other musical instruments that were in there? How much of that affected it?
Well, I would say probably, you know, a lot of it, because that's something, you know, you can't write music. You don't have to be a great musician to write great music. Now, many times people are, but you have to have something. You have to have a certain background, and you have to have the soul for it. Just like writing songs. A lot of people write songs. May not be great musicians. So you have to have that kind of buried somewhere deep inside you for whatever reason, wherever it comes from. It's a passion. And just like writing songs is like that, scoring films, you can't look at a scene from a film and sit around and go, duh, you're gone. You have to be fast and right. You can't be.
You have to be right. But how much of that comes from the passion and the instinct within you? You got to have that.
Well, yeah, you have to have that. As far as when that happened, I would say that's something early on I had. But as far as me going from being a solo song artist to scoring films, you're talking about at least 20 years. So you're not talking about, oh, I decided I wanted to do that.
It wasn't a leap.
A million different things and songs, and learning about the recording studio from doing those albums, which helped me in film scoring, even though film scoring is a completely different animal, has nothing to do with songs or anything else. I never, you know, would write a song for a film because it wasn't my job. But that film scoring thing happened very, very, you know, long after I'd done many things. And to be honest with you, I always say, had any of those commercial singles of mine from my albums been hits here in this country, they would have never bought me. They would have.
You don't think so?
You're not. There's a whole thing in this town, and you better be a serious. Even then, you may not be able to get through the challenge of it. So I was lucky because after all those years, even though there were some people, great directors from England, a few who I worked with, they remembered a couple of those songs. And when I Abbey Road to record these scores, when we get done, the orchestra would always go, okay, play that song. But the people from the studio in Hollywood who flew there didn't know anything. But the point is, here, the directors, 90% of them, they didn't know anything. I was like a new guy. Luckily, I looked a little younger, shall we say, than my years. They knew nothing about me except I was this new guy, this new, you know, versatile musician in town.
Right, I get it.
Saving some problem films, Twins, and then a completely different kind of film, Last of the Mohicans, who came in and were on these things that were problems for whatever reason, and And so I got a reputation like that. But had they known that I was a singer of like had I had a hit with my song Weekend in New England and not Barry Manilow,
it would have been bad, right? It would have been bad.
Bad, yeah, bad.
Right, bad.
So,
I want to play the clip from Last of the Mohicans. So for our audience listening, it's wonderful. Chauncey, take it away.
take it away.
Love.
You got the move.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Wow.
Thank you. That's my a great story behind that, which we won't get into. But
Well,
you know,
why are we not getting into it? I'm here to get into it. You can give me an abridged version.
well, you know, you of course know the movie, and you know about the darkness of Michael
Yes.
Mann's wonderful film, and Daniel Day-Lewis is absolutely
Absolutely.
performed. He never got credit for it. He never got credit. You should see this guy in real life for looking the way he did. He's like the kind of meekest, gentle soul, and he made himself this Hawkeye character. I don't know how he did. I mean, I was impressed.
Incredible transformation. Incredible.
Yeah, the guy. I'm telling you, he ain't that guy, but
Right.
he's a
But
great.
that's a true actor, Randy. I mean, Daniel Day-Lewis is, he's on screen bigger than life.
Yeah, I mean, he had done a film. He was known, but he had never been in any kind of movie that was commercial. From his film My Left Foot, which was phenomenal.
That was a phenomenal film.
Yeah, but you look at that, and then you look at this guy, the way he talked, the way he moved, the way he carried himself, and of course that story between him and Cora, who was an actress named Madeline Stowe. It was just great. And so, you want the quick story?
I want the quick story behind that.
Okay, here's the deal. So the film, when you think of it, you hear that music, you may be stirred by it, but it's like, hold it, I'm thinking of Magua, that guy, the fantastic guy that played the Mohegan chief and all that stuff. Here's what that music was. When you do music for a film, the director, the music that all of these people who I talked about, the quote film family, who may have been involved with this project for 5, 10, 15, 25 years, seriously. And like I said, no matter what it is, good film, bad film, comedy, they put something called a temp score in. The studio uses that at every moment when there could be music. They put music in. When they show it to the distributor or they have a public screening, they want to get numbers. They use it to hope sometimes make the film better. A lot of times it doesn't, because a lot of these things are, a director's vision. And a lot of times you got to stay with somebody's vision. You can't, a bunch of people in the quote age group that it's appropriate for of their.
Oh, Randy, your fangs are coming out here today.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Oh, I'm giving you.
I agree. Okay, keep going.
Now we'll get back to this thing. Therefore, when a composer comes into a film, when he starts working, the director comes over and they send you the film, and there's a temp score on it. And you may go, well, hold it. You're writing original music. Yeah, but what does the temp score show? The temp score shows kind of like the support musically that a director thinks that each cue, each scene where there's music needs. He's looking for you to save his ass,
right.
Looking for you to make that scene. If it needs music, lots of times it's just as important. Don't use music, because there may be music coming up. And if you use music into music, it's not as effective. Anyway, but sometimes, once in a while, a composer may look at something and all of a sudden there's a scene that doesn't have music. And he says, you know what? I have a great idea. Wrong. They only want music where, after looking at this thing in the editing room, in the studio, and the distributor, where they had it, because it's jarring to them. They haven't put music there. Therefore, and let's say they score these screenings, Wendy, as you probably know. I love doing films that get bad scores. Because if it gets a good score, let's say
right.
over the number 80, they don't want to mess with it. They want everything pretty much. They'll make
the same.
The sound better. They'll make the editing a little better. They'll make the music will be new, but it should be sort of, they don't want a composer saying, they think if they put music in a scene that they didn't have it, guess what? Maybe they won't get an 80. Maybe they'll get a 73. See, if they don't. So I found out, though I will always go for it and record that music if I really believe in it. If I don't think it has a shot.
So you kind of put it in your back pocket, so you're ready to go with it.
No. I don't put it in my back pocket.
You don't?
I put it right in there.
Oh.
Scoring stage with a full orchestra or whatever it is. We record that music. I put it on my soundtrack usually. But guess what? When the film comes out and they do their mix, because I'm not around for their mix.
Yeah.
Mixes where they do the sound effects, dialogue, and usually they wipe music out a lot, unless it's a real quiet scene, a love scene or something. And then they always, if you say something like, boy, it's not loud enough, they look at you like, say, hey, be happy, it's in.
Right, be glad it got in, right?
Yeah. Okay, so I got used many times of whatever the cue was, no matter how good it was and how good it sounded, and everybody agreed it was great. In the end, the movie comes out, I don't go to the mix, like I said. The movie comes out, that cue's not in there because they got it's insecurity. They got scared. Okay, right. So why are we talking about this? So let's go back to Last of the Mohegans. Michael Mann, toughest guy in the world, especially with music. So there's a scene, which if you remember the movie at all, it's a fantastic scene. It's sort of near the beginning of the movie when the two daughters of the British colonel or general who's in charge of whatever the regiment is in the middle of nowhere, they come to visit their father. And he's like completely, holy shit, you came? We could, this is dangerous. But for whatever, I forgot whatever reason, the girls came from London to wherever it was, to Fort so-and-so.
They're always Fort so-and-so.
He's happy to see his two daughters, and they're lovely and beautiful, but he's a little worried. Okay. One of the reasons that they came and that they were kind of coerced into coming is because one of the young officers who's under the father is in love with Madeline Stowe's character, Cora. To marry her. Okay. So there's a scene. It was called the garden scene. I'll never forget it. And what it is, is, so they arrive there. I forgot what's going on. And then they're having a little, like, it's a bit kind of odd because they're like having, it looks almost like a formal English tea in the garden. Meanwhile, they're in this goddamn fort surrounded by what we all, this tribe who is about to, slaughter them. So they're in the garden, and this guy, the young officer who's in love with her, is talking about, listen, when all this is over, we're going to go back to London and we're going to get married and da 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 da. It's all very nice and sweet. For some reason, you get that Cora isn't really into it. It's not that she's not going to marry him, but he's the main thrust of the romantic thing. Mm-hmm. Now, what happens is during that beautiful, lovely scene, sincere as hell, Michael Mann cuts to the forest, and we see Magua and the rest of them coming through the dense forest towards this fort where this little festive party is happening.
Oh, you can see the juxtaposition between the two things, right?
And it's scary as hell. And guess what? You don't need music, because in a very short time, the shit is going to hit the fan.
Absolutely.
And these people, in a very graphic way, including their father, is, it was actually when I was doing the film, I swear to God, I wouldn't look at that certain section. It was so horrific. Okay. So I'm looking at it. Now, it'd be easy to put like, they're having this talk. He's proposing his love for her. We cut to Magua. Yeah, it would have been easy for me to put like, ooh, I'll put a dark, low tone in there, to play what's going on. But I decided to try something else. Let's play this guy's love for this girl. And that's what you just listened to. Now, you may say, oh, you're going to ruin the scene. It's going to be too much, which is possible, in which case, obviously, they take it out. However, when you do these things, you have to record everything in the best way. You can't like belittle and say, oh, I'll put this little sweet thing in. No, it had to be done with a very warm, full orchestra, exactly timed right.
Amazing.
So I did it. And so while that music's going on, you're cutting to this guy. Well, for some reason, it's not for me to say. I guess this very tough character, in the end, Michael Mann used it exactly placed and the level exactly where I would have dreamed it would be. So it ends up in this classic movie, and more, or just as importantly, to show you how much nobody was into that movie. No one thought anybody would see it because it was long, it was historical. And when I say nobody was in it, you may say, what are you talking about? Daniel Day-Lewis? No, Daniel Day-Lewis had never been in the picture that more than 3 people saw. So the studio, being the, and it went over budget, and there had to be a completion bond. And anyway, at the end, I said, we should have a soundtrack. A what? A soundtrack? It's a historical film. There's no songs in it. Forget it. Anyway, I kind of stuck to my guns. And in one afternoon, I went to a dicey situation, which is another story, but we won't get into that, because there were 2 composers. I never met the other composer. We never met. We never wrote anything.
Wow, 2 composers.
But there was one, and then there was another.
Right.
I got a lot of shit for this, but I had nothing to do with it. I was asked to do something, which I did. So I put all the music together, his and mine, and was able to get a smaller company who got rights to the film because they picked up certain rights that the movie studio wanted financing back because they were so scared they were going to lose all their money. So this Morgan Creek, it was called, had a little record label. So I put it together. And then when I was doing it, they called and they said, make sure that you put it in the order of the movie. So you'll put the opening, then the next scene. And no, I said, no way. People, even though I had no clue, I swear to God, Wendy, that anybody would ever, I didn't know it was going to be the biggest selling movie score soundtrack of the last, whatever it is.
It's
Still,
an amazing story.
it's, I said, no, people may have a question, so that there's no question, just like Chauncey a while ago asked me. It's very interesting because did you write that? That's a good question. Because he knew a little, well, you can see on the thing, it says music by Trevor Jones, music by Edelman. So, but I wanted it clear. And the album, the way I put it together, and I did the whole thing myself, made it crystal clear. These pieces were Trevor's, these pieces were Randy. Yeah. And now, and as soon as that movie came out, that music just started. People were, I don't know, they were interested in having that. And they are still interested now. And that piece, Cora, which has become this thing now, is only there because I went for that scene that they didn't have any music in. But Michael Mann, to his credit, I always think highly of him, used it. And then I put it on this soundtrack that who would ever believe the soundtrack for that historical movie they thought would never see the light of day. It was barely released, would cause this stir.
Such a big stir.
Life.
Randy, how do you, because I love giving inspiration. How do you stick to your guns so much? You're dealing with the bull of Hollywood. All right. And you know this, you're dealing with the egos. How do you do it? How do you get your agenda out there?
To be honest with you, I'm considered a problem. I'm serious.
I wonder why.
Because I don't go out of my way. But if I believe in something,
I got it.
I will do it. Now, I will also cover my ass. If I'll be honest with you, it's sort of, if there is a scene in a movie and I like something that's much different than they're feeling, guess what I do? I write 2 cues. So that's in a way putting myself down, because you'd say, well, if you really believed in it, you would only give him that. Yeah, only give him that. And here's the problem. It's not me, only give them that, and then I don't care, they don't like it. It puts them in a lurch because they still need, for a particular scene, what they feel it needs. So if they don't react well to what I'm doing, I better give them something to protect them. So that's sort of, I learned that over the years.
You learn that. You also learn you're covering your own butt when you do this too. Cover my own butt, right?
But it's more, and I mean, I'm serious like that about that. I'm covering. I don't want them to have to go through my score, which a lot of times they do, and look for a piece of music they think fits that scene better than the music that I did that I know they're not into. So I tailor something.
Yeah.
And by the way, whenever I do that, I do it really fast.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And it may not even be as much alike what they used in their temp score, but it's got a certain emotional, rhythmic feeling. And that way I get to do my thing, although it's hard when you're in a time crunch, as you are with this stuff, to do that. But I do that. And then you know what happens when I go in my bedroom a few steps from here at night? I can go to sleep because I know I covered my ass.
Right.
For a certain scene.
You know what? And at the end of the day, you're covering their ass. Oh, and speaking of ass covering, so I do want to get to how you covered your ass during the pandemic. You came out with a single, Coming Out the Other Side, through Tribeca Records. That's Soho Johnny. You know what? I want to play a little of it because I listened to the words.
Yeah.
And it was highly personal of what you were going through. I mean, we're talking about all the normal stuff that's your life and that's your history, right?
Yeah,
Let's talk about what has been through.
It has a little message, but it was done. It's a fun thing, and that's what it's meant to be. It's not meant to be some serious message.
No, I didn't get it as serious, but I liked your fun thing, and there is a message in it. Chauncey, could you play that for us? Thank you.
You wake up with a smile on your face. 'Cause today you can't run from your place. You've been locked in your house all year long. But today you begin a new song. You've been pushed from your purpose in life and been scared by the edge of a knife. Now it's time to fight back and break out. Time to see what this life's all about. You just take a good look all around you. Let your heart be filled with pride. Grab your coat and take your belongings. You're coming out the other side. There's a new kind of spring in your step and a fresh attitude you've got, and a new spirit's filling your space, and a confidence that's your new base. So just take a good look all around you and let your heart fill up with pride. Grab your hat, put your best suit on. You're coming out the other side. You can look at the scene all around you. There's a mountain to climb if you dare. Just take hold and stand firm. Make a difference and learn. Set a course, it can lead anywhere. So go on, take a walk on the street where you live. 'Cause there's more in your tank you can give. There's a friend who needs help over there. So extend your good arm, show you care. And just take a good look all around you and let your heart fill up with pride. Grab your coat and all your belongings. Hey, coming out the other side. You're coming out the other side. Here we go! Hey! And just take a good look all around you and let your heart fill up with pride. Grab your hat, put your best suit on. You're coming out the other side. You're coming out the other side.
Yay! Ow! Randy, there's so many things I like about it. There is a sense of humor to the song, but there's also, you know what? There's also a very big emotional truth. Go out there, talk to a stranger, okay? Think about it. This whole thing of being in our houses crazy, right? None of us would have
Yeah.
ever, when you thought of your future 3 years ago, Randy, did you see yourself in your house?
Didn't see myself in the house. Although that's a nice house, but no.
I'm sure you have a nice house and a gorgeous studio, but
If
you hit the nail on the head with this piece, and I love that you're singing it.
I'm singing it, and by the
Love
way,
that you're
just
singing it.
for our friend Eileen, do me a favor when we get off. Listen to you'll be surprised. Listen to the other thing with me.
I did. I have both versions of it.
Okay,
I
great.
did listen to both of them, but for me, I'm this kind of girl.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. That's why I said it.
Yeah, and I think like there's nothing out there about the pandemic. Nobody has put, I'm so happy that you did this. Coming out the other side, it's available on Tribeca Records, Soho Johnny's label, right?
Yeah, and it's got a little bit of the Jersey thing in there.
It does. I got the
It's
It's
no,
a little
really.
Jersey, Randy, a little Jersey, a little calypso. I got a little
it's been
calypso.
years about that. Yeah. Thank you for playing that. I really appreciate it.
Oh no, of course I wanted to. When I listened to it, I'm like, oh, this is great. So it's a very upbeat song. So I guess you're going through the pandemic. A lot of people flipped out. A lot of creatives flipped out.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I had, it was nice because I have my place back here, and
I figured, yeah.
Different kinds of things. That's how it's not that I thought about this. I thought of this idea. It's been years. First of all, I did it all back here myself. There's no one else playing on it. It's just me.
I love that you did it. You probably loved every minute of it too.
Well, thank you. And, and listen, when I come to New York, I heard you say something about this restaurant you're in.
You're coming to New York and we can all meet at PANGEA. We'll meet Eileen here and
I'll do a thing there. I'll do a charity thing there. Gladly.
I will talk to the owners.
I
Give me the date. Absolutely.
The piano. I'll play some film stuff and some songs. Boom.
That would be epic. I don't know when you're coming, so if you can let us.
Neither do I. I'm throwing it out because I like it.
I'll hold it to you. But also, Randy, I'm not letting you go yet, because one of the most interesting things that I found out about you, I always try and find the thing that most people don't know. You wrote a musical about the Panama Canal, and I saw the songs and the characters in it. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Okay. That's yeah. If I know it sounds odd, you'd say why? Well,
no, I didn't.
Okay. Going to the Panama Canal was easily, building it was easily as big an event as going to the moon.
And by the way, it's called Shortcut. That's the name.
Right. Well, that's recent. I renamed it because that's what it was about. But going to the Panama Canal was easily as big and important an event as going to the moon was 50, 60, 70 years ago. That's how important it was to connect the oceans at that time. I read a book and got into this a while ago. It's a big musical, but it's about three men. It's about William Gorgas, the man who discovered the cure for malaria and yellow fever. It's about Teddy Roosevelt, who was president at the time, and a guy named John Stevens, who's the engineer who devised the way to do this, even though at the beginning they said, oh, this is easy. We've done the Suez Canal. That's 3 times as long. Well, it wasn't. Anyway.
What in particular? So I'm a member of the Explorers Club. And if you're into this kind of stuff, you know about the Explorers Club. And we've got Teddy Roosevelt's picture all over. I'm into this kind of stuff. What in particular? You said you were motivated by a book you read, but what in particular about the Panama Canal?
Oh, just doing it.
The history, right. How did they?
How did they do it?
How the hell did they do it? Right.
But they do it. Well, they did. It's an engineering feat. Just big or bigger than the rocket that took off yesterday. But it wasn't done quickly because the whole French government and French country was wiped out. And then 30, 40 years later, Teddy Roosevelt became president and decided to build a world and do it like a war. That's how they built it. Right. Long story, but it's an amazing story. And the writer, this was started years ago when I took this idea and some songs to who do you take a musical to years ago if you wanted it? The guy, Hal Prince. And
of course, Hal Prince, right.
Walked in off the street.
Right.
believe me, it was literally, okay, you say, Howdy, you couldn't walk in. I mean, it was after he did Evita and Phantom of the Opera, and told him this story. And the next morning, I was sitting at a deli on 6th Avenue, which isn't there, with a guy by the name of John Weidman. Among other things, John Weidman is Stephen Sondheim's partner, not partner in life. Partner,
right. Yeah. Music.
He wrote Pacific Overtures, Assassins, blah, blah, blah.
Amazing. Amazing New York story.
And you should have John and I when I come there. And John and I, so I met John because I needed someone to turn this massive story into a book. You have to, you can't just tell somebody, you know, and anyone. Now, John and I have been involved in it for years. However, we're both really busy into completely other things.
Yeah, I understand.
So we are still going on it, and I'm going to see him in a couple of weeks.
I love,
you know what I'll
totally love the concept of this. I would love to see this to fruition. But
Nobody
before
I'm going to get a CD of it.
I do want to read you. You had some really, really nice comments here. Let's see. Nick Lyon, who's a music producer, said he wants to see more scores in films. There's just not enough musical scores going on now. What's that about? Why?
I can't. I don't know what he's.
Do we think that having Netflix cranking out films one after the next is affecting the industry that way?
No. No. It's affecting it in a certain way. I just did something for them, but actually, when you do it for them, you don't. You do it for somebody, but instead of it being for Warner Brothers Pictures or Universal, you're doing it for someone who has a deal with Netflix. So you're still doing it for somebody, but they still have plenty of music. It's just that the budgets are much smaller. You're not going to see many symphonic scores in Netflix things. Although I shouldn't say that. I hate this because it is being done. It's hard to generalize. So I can't.
You can't generalize. Okay. And I'm not seeing so well today. Channel 1979. Other very beautiful pieces through the years, maybe more absolute than Coro, are as follows from The Mask. Yeah, that's true. Lovebirds, Diabolique, and Mia. Do you know this person who's on here? This is great. Seems to know a lot about you, Randy, because also said piano performed by Randy himself. Telltale, Adventures of Pico Spill, which for a Disney movie, the scene you can blow the walls off the project speakers. There you go.
No, I don't know this person, but
I love it. This is somebody that knows an awful lot about you, which is why I'm so happy we had you here today. People that know about you, people that don't know about you, what you do for the music industry is so key and fascinating to so many of us. I will never ever look at musical scores the same way again. And I'm holding you up to the fact that you promised a performance here at PANGEA. You promised here with myself, Eileen Shapiro, and the other person that you're going to bring along. So I am going to trail you and find out when you are coming to New York. And I am holding you to this.
I just don't throw those things out, Wendy.
Oh, no, I didn't think you did. You're very sincere. And believe me, when you like something, you like it. And when you don't like something, you will let them know.
I will let you know.
Did I get it?
You got
Randy,
it.
Thank you. You've been such fascinating, really, and a terrific guest today.
Thanks, Wendy. I enjoyed being here. And
Thank you.
See you again. I'm also I'm going to get you something that most people don't have, because we just finished putting it together, and that's a CD of 2 hours of the music from The Shortcut, Panama Canal.
Okay, that is an incredible gift, and I will treasure. I can't thank you enough. For people that want to know more about Randy, it's randyedelman.com. Okay, here we go. And there may be an Instagram account. We're not sure.
Yeah, I think there is. You ask her, she'll know.
Okay, good. There's an Instagram account as well, but Randy's got quite a website, completely impressive, score after score after score, awards, and I just loved it. Thank you again.
Thanks. And thank you to Chauncey.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Chauncey. And thank you, audience, for tuning in today. See you next week. Bye-bye.